My name is Hank, and I'm a mechanic with 20 years of experience under the hood. I work at an auto shop on the outskirts of Chicago, hands always covered in grease, but my heart was clean. At least it was, until what happened next turned my entire world upside down and showed me what real betrayal looks like. Rachel and I got married 8 years ago in a small ceremony at St. Mary's Church downtown. We met in a coffee shop near the university where she worked as a cashier while taking interior design courses at night. Back then, she was a simple girl with big dreams of becoming successful in the design world. I fell in love with her laugh and the way she talked about her plans for the future, her eyes lighting up whenever she described the home she wanted to create for people. The last 2 years had been good to Rachel. She landed a job at a prestigious design studio downtown, and business was booming. Clients were calling constantly, her portfolio was growing, and I was genuinely proud of what she had accomplished. She'd come home excited about new projects, showing me photos of beautiful homes she was transforming. I loved seeing her passion for her work. But what really surprised me that Tuesday evening in September was her text message at 7 o'clock, right when I was finishing up a brake job on a 2015 Honda Civic. "Hank, I need to go on an emergency business trip to Detroit. Big corporate project came up suddenly. I'll be there for 3 days, maybe 4. Don't wait up for dinner tonight." A business trip? In 8 years of marriage, Rachel had never once gone on a business trip. Her studio worked exclusively with local Chicago clients, wealthy North Shore residents, Lincoln Park couples, downtown professionals looking to redesign their condos. The furthest she'd ever traveled for work was to Evanston, which was barely 30 minutes away. But I didn't question it. Maybe her studio was expanding, taking on bigger clients. I simply nodded when she kissed me goodbye that night, watching her pull her small suitcase toward the door. She seemed nervous, more nervous than usual for someone going to handle a routine business meeting. The first day passed normally enough. Rachel called that evening around 9, telling me about the hotel, how tired she was from the long meetings with the corporate executives. Her voice sounded normal, nothing suspicious about her tone or the background noise. She even complained about the hotel coffee, which was exactly the kind of thing she'd usually complain about. The second day was also unremarkable. Another evening call, more stories about difficult clients and boring conference rooms. She asked about my day, I told her about the cars I'd worked on, and we said goodnight like any normal married couple. But the third day, that's when my real story began, and when everything I thought I knew about my marriage started crumbling like rust on an old bumper. I was sitting in the break room during my lunch hour, scrolling through Facebook while eating a sandwich my coworker Jerry's wife had packed for him but he didn't want. Social media wasn't usually my thing, but I was bored and killing time before getting back under the hood of a troublesome Chevy Silverado. Then I saw it. A post from Susan, one of Rachel's co-workers from the design studio. The post showed a photo from what looked like an upscale restaurant with the caption, "Girls' Night Out at the Purple Orchid." Purple Heart. I looked closer at the image. There was Susan with 2 other women I didn't recognize, all holding wine glasses and smiling at the camera. But in the background, slightly blurred but unmistakably clear, I could see Rachel sitting at a corner table by the window. She wasn't alone. A man in an expensive suit sat across from her. Candlelight flickered between them. Wine glasses caught the ambient lighting. And her hand, her left hand, still wearing the wedding ring I'd saved 3 months to buy, was resting on top of his across the table. My heart started pounding so hard I thought Jerry might hear it from across the break room. I checked the geolocation on Susan's post. Chicago, Illinois. Not Detroit. Chicago. My Chicago, where my wife supposedly wasn't supposed to be for another 2 days. But the worst part wasn't the location. The worst part was the expression on Rachel's face. She was looking at this stranger the way she used to look at me during our early dating days, that soft, adoring gaze that made me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. I hadn't seen that look directed at me in months, maybe longer. I took a screenshot of the photo and stared at it for the remaining 20 minutes of my lunch break. My mind was racing through possibilities. Maybe it was a work dinner. Maybe the Detroit trip got canceled and she was meeting with a local client. Maybe I was completely misreading an innocent business situation. But deep down, in that gut instinct way that comes from years of diagnosing engine problems, I knew something was very wrong. That evening, Rachel called right on schedule at 9 o'clock. "Hey honey, how was your day? I'm absolutely exhausted from these meetings. The corporate people are so demanding and the project scope keeps changing. I don't think I've ever worked with such difficult clients." "Everything's fine here," I managed to say, keeping my voice as steady as possible. "Where are you right now?" "In my hotel room, of course. Just got back from the final presentation of the day. Tomorrow's going to be even longer. We have to present 3 different design concepts to the board, and they want to see mood boards for each option. I'm dreading it, honestly. Every word was a lie. Each sentence felt like a small betrayal, adding weight to the growing suspicion in my chest. But I said nothing. Something told me I needed more information before I made any moves. Well, don't work too hard, I said. I love you. I love you too, Hank. So much. I'll be home soon, I promise. The next day after work, instead of driving straight home to our little house in Bridgeport, I took a detour to visit my old army buddy Mike. We'd served together in Afghanistan back in our 20s, and now he worked security for a major corporation downtown. Mike had always been the smart one in our unit, the guy who could figure out problems that left the rest of us scratching our heads. Hank, you look like hell, Mike said when he opened the door to his apartment in Pilsen. What's going on, brother? I showed him the screenshot, explained the whole situation with the fake Detroit trip, told him about the lies Rachel had been telling me. Mike listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or frowning at particularly troubling details. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photo on my phone screen. Listen, he finally said, I know someone who can help us figure out what's really going on here. Not a cop or anything official like that, just someone who's good at finding out the truth when people are trying to hide it. Give me a couple days to make some calls, okay? I nodded. At this point, I was willing to try anything to get answers. Rachel came home Friday evening with a bouquet of expensive flowers and a box of chocolates from some fancy boutique I'd never heard of. I'm so sorry I was gone longer than expected, she said, kissing me and handing me the gifts. The project turned out to be way more complex than they initially described. We had to completely redesign their lobby and conference rooms. But we got the contract. It's going to be huge for the studio. This should make up for me being away on such short notice. She hugged me tight, and I caught a whiff of unfamiliar perfume in her hair. It wasn't the drugstore brand she usually wore. This was something expensive, sophisticated. The kind of scent that came in small bottles with designer labels. Tell me all about Detroit, I said over dinner, watching her face carefully. Oh, you know how these corporate things go. Boring meetings, stuffy conference rooms, terrible hotel food. I couldn't wait to get home to your cooking. She smiled that charming smile that used to melt my heart completely. Now it just looked fake, like a mask she was wearing. Any interesting people on the team? Just the usual corporate types. Middle-aged executives in expensive suits talking about quarterly projections and brand synergy. Nothing worth mentioning, really? More lies. Each one delivered with perfect casual confidence, as if she'd been practicing them. On Monday, Mike called with an update. I've got information, he said. Meet me at Murphy's Pub tonight at 8. Come alone. Murphy's was our old hangout from our army days, a dive bar with cheap beer and pool tables that had seen better decades. Mike was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back corner booth with a thick manila envelope in front of him. His name is Matthew Harrison, Mike began without preamble. Corporate lawyer at Henderson, Burke & Associates downtown. 34 years old, never married, pulls in about $300,000 a year. Nice bachelor pad on North Shore, drives a BMW, belongs to the yacht club. My stomach dropped. $300,000 a year was more than I made in 4 years combined. How long? I asked. They've been seeing each other for about 6 months. Usually meet twice a week, Tuesdays at his apartment, Thursdays at various upscale restaurants around the city. That night at the Purple Orchid? He was proposing something big. Marriage? Not exactly. Mike opened the envelope and spread several photographs across the table. He asked her to move in with him. Permanently. They're planning a month-long trip to Europe this December. Paris, Rome, Barcelona, the works. The photos were damning. Rachel leaving an expensive high-rise building. Rachel and Matthew holding hands while walking along the lakefront. Rachel wearing a designer dress I'd never seen before, entering the Chicago Opera House with Matthew in a tuxedo. Rachel kissing Matthew goodbye in the parking garage of what must have been his office building. There's more, Mike continued. Next Saturday is your birthday, right? Yeah. They've planned a romantic weekend at his family's cabin in Wisconsin. She's already told her coworkers she'll be out of town on another business trip. She's getting sloppy with her lies, Hank. She's planning to tell you it's another emergency client situation. I closed my eyes and tried to process everything. 6 months. Half a year of lies, deception, secret meetings, fake business trips. 6 months of coming home to a woman who was living a completely different life during the day. What are you going to do? Mike asked. I don't know yet. but I'll figure something out. The rest of that week felt like I was living in a fog. Rachel behaved normally, making breakfast, asking about my day, watching our usual TV shows together on the couch. On Wednesday, she even suggested we plan a vacation for next spring, maybe somewhere warm like Florida or California. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. On Thursday, right on schedule, she announced another emergency work situation. "Honey, I'm so sorry, but we just got contacted by this huge client from Milwaukee. They want to meet this weekend to discuss a major renovation project. I know it's your birthday weekend and I feel terrible about missing it, but this could be career-changing money for me." "It's okay," I said, putting on my best understanding husband act. "Work is work. Maybe it's better this way. I can have a quiet birthday with family without you having to worry about entertaining everyone." "You're the best husband in the world," she said, kissing my cheek. "I'll make it up to you, I promise. Maybe we can plan a special celebration when I get back." That's when my plan crystallized. It was risky, maybe cruel, but it felt right. After months of lies and deception, it was time for the truth to come out. And I wanted witnesses. Saturday morning, I started making phone calls. I invited my parents, my sister and her family, Rachel's parents, and a handful of our closest friends. I told everyone I wanted to have a small birthday celebration. Nothing fancy, just close family and friends gathering at our house. I mentioned that Rachel was away on business but would try to join us via video call to wish me happy birthday. Everyone was excited to come. My mom offered to bring a cake, my sister volunteered to handle decorations, and Rachel's mother said she'd prepare her famous potato salad. By Saturday afternoon, our little house was full of people, laughter, and the warm chaos of a family celebration. The kids were running around the backyard, the adults were mingling in the living room, and the dining table was loaded with food and presents. It felt like the kind of gathering Rachel and I used to dream about hosting when we first got married, except she wasn't there to share it. Around 6 o'clock, when everyone had settled in with plates of food and conversations were flowing naturally, I stood up in the middle of the living room. "Hey everyone, can I get your attention for a minute?" The room gradually quieted down. My nephew stopped his story about soccer practice, my dad paused mid-bite of cake, and all eyes turned to me. "I wanted to thank you all for being here today. It means a lot to have family and friends around on my birthday." I paused, looking around at all the faces, people who had been part of my life for years, people who cared about both Rachel and me. "But there's something I need to share with all of you. Something that's going to change everything." I walked over to our entertainment center and connected my laptop to the big screen TV. Rachel's father sat up straighter in his chair, probably expecting a slideshow of vacation photos or something similarly innocent. Over the past few months, I've learned something important about truth and deception. About the person I thought I knew better than anyone else in the world. The first photograph appeared on the screen: Rachel and Matthew at the Purple Orchid, hands intertwined across the candlelit table. This was taken 3 weeks ago, when Rachel told me she was on a business trip in Detroit. The room fell completely silent. You could hear the wall clock ticking, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barking. Rachel's mother gasped, her hand flying to cover her mouth. My sister immediately ushered the kids out to the backyard, whispering something about giving the adults privacy to talk. "This is Matthew Harrison, a corporate lawyer here in Chicago. This is where Rachel actually was during her supposed business trip." The next photo showed them walking hand in hand along Navy Pier, Rachel wearing sunglasses and laughing at something Matthew was saying. And this was taken last Tuesday, when Rachel told me she was working late at the studio. More photos followed, Rachel entering Matthew's apartment building, the two of them at an expensive steakhouse, Rachel wearing jewelry I'd never seen before, Matthew's hand on her back as they walked into some upscale event venue. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Rachel's father had stood up and walked to the window, his back to the room. My mother was crying quietly, tissues pressed to her eyes. Now, the reason I'm showing you all this tonight on my birthday is because right now, as we're all gathered here celebrating, Rachel is supposed to be in Milwaukee on another emergency business trip. I clicked to the final photograph, taken that very morning by Mike's contact. Rachel loading suitcases into Matthew's BMW outside our house, wearing the expensive coat I'd seen in previous photos. This was taken at 8:30 this morning. My wife is currently at Matthew's family cabin in Wisconsin, where they're spending what she believes is a romantic weekend getaway. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Then Rachel's phone, which I'd been expecting, started ringing. Her contact photo appeared on my laptop screen, connected through the TV. I answered and put it on speakerphone. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Rachel's voice filled the living room, bright and cheerful and completely oblivious to the situation. "I'm so sorry I can't be there with you and everyone. How's the party going? Are my parents there? Tell them I said hello." Every person in that room was staring at the phone, at the photos on the TV screen, at me standing in the middle of it all like some kind of master of ceremonies at the world's most uncomfortable birthday party. "The party's going great, Rachel," I said calmly. "Everyone's here. My family, your family, our closest friends. We're all together looking at some very interesting photographs." Pause. "Photographs? What kind of photographs?" "The kind that show where you really are when you're supposedly on business trips. The kind that show who you're really with when you tell me you're working late. The kind that show what our marriage actually means to you." A longer pause. I could hear voices in the background on her end, Matthew asking her something, though I couldn't make out the words. "Hank, I don't know what you think you know, but I know about Matthew Harrison. I know about his apartment on North Shore, his family's cabin in Wisconsin, and your plans to move in with him permanently. I know about the 6 months of lies, the fake business trips, and the Europe vacation you're planning together." Dead silence on both ends of the call. "Everyone here knows now too, Rachel. Your parents, my parents, all our friends. They've seen the photos of you with your boyfriend. They've heard you lie to me in real time while you're actually with him right now." "Hank, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. The photos explain everything. Your choices explain everything. The fact that you're with him right now instead of here for my birthday explains everything." I could hear her crying now, but it was too late for tears. "I'm hanging up now. Don't come home tonight. Don't come home tomorrow. When you're ready to discuss divorce proceedings, you can call me. Until then, I don't want to hear from you." I ended the call and disconnected my laptop from the TV. The room remained silent except for the sound of Rachel's mother crying and my nephew asking loudly from the backyard when they could come back inside for more cake. Rachel's father finally spoke, still facing the window. "Hank, we had no idea. We're so sorry." "You don't need to apologize for her choices," I said. "But I needed you all to know the truth. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal when it wasn't." My sister came back inside and put her arm around me. "What do you need us to do?" "Just be here. That's all I need right now." The party continued for another hour, though the mood had obviously shifted. People didn't know quite what to say or how to act in the aftermath of such a revelation. Eventually, everyone started making their excuses to leave. They had to get the kids home, or they had early church in the morning, or they just needed time to process what had happened. Rachel's parents were the last to go. Her mother hugged me tightly before leaving. "She made her choice, Hank," she said quietly. "You deserved better than this. You always did." After everyone left, I sat alone in my living room, surrounded by empty plates, crumpled wrapping paper, and the lingering evidence of what should have been a normal happy birthday celebration. My phone buzzed with text messages throughout the evening. Rachel sent dozens of them, apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness, promises that she'd end things with Matthew, requests to talk in person. I read them all but didn't respond to any. Matthew apparently tried calling me several times, though I didn't answer those either. The last voicemail he left around midnight was him saying he never knew I existed until that evening, that Rachel had told him she was divorced and living alone. Whether that was true or not didn't really matter anymore. Sunday morning, I woke up to find Rachel's car in the driveway. She must have come home sometime during the night. I could hear her moving around upstairs, probably packing more of her belongings. When I went to make coffee, I found a handwritten letter on the kitchen table. "Hank," it began, "I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence by making excuses for what I've done. You deserved so much better than the lies I've been telling you. I never meant for it to go this far, and I never wanted to hurt you like this. I'll be staying at my sister's apartment while we figure out the legal details. I'm sorry for everything. Rachel." She was gone by the time I finished reading it. Half her clothes were missing from our bedroom closet, her jewelry box was empty, and all her personal photos had been removed from their frames around the house. Over the next few weeks, I learned more details about Rachel and Matthew's relationship through mutual friends and social media. Apparently, they'd met at a networking event downtown. She was there representing her design studio, he was there with other lawyers from his firm. They'd started with coffee meetings that turned into lunch dates that turned into something much more serious. What struck me most was how methodically she'd planned the deception. She'd created an entire alternate schedule, complete with fake client names and project descriptions. She'd researched Detroit hotels so she could describe them convincingly. She'd even practiced her phone calls, making sure to sound tired and stressed when she called me from her business trips. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly straightforward. We'd been married long enough that Illinois law required a fairly even split of our assets, but we didn't have much to divide: a modest house with a small mortgage, 2 aging cars, and a savings account that had maybe $3,000 in it. Matthew, it turned out, had broken up with Rachel within a week of my birthday revelation. According to Susan from the design studio, he'd claimed that he wasn't interested in continuing a relationship with someone who had just gone through such a public and messy situation. The Europe trip was cancelled, the moving-in plans were scrapped, and Rachel found herself suddenly single and looking for a new place to live. She tried reaching out to me several times during the divorce process, sometimes through her lawyer, sometimes through mutual friends, and once through my sister. She wanted to apologize in person, to explain her side of things, to somehow make amends for what she'd done. But I wasn't interested in her explanations or apologies. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair itself, it was about the months of calculated deception, the elaborate lies, the way she'd looked me in the eye and made up stories about business trips and difficult clients while she was planning a completely different life with someone else. By December, everything was finalized. I sold our house to a young couple with twin toddlers who loved the big backyard and the quiet neighborhood. Rachel moved to a studio apartment near her sister on the south side, took a job with a smaller design firm, and from what I heard, was struggling to rebuild both her career and her reputation after word got around about what had happened. I used my half of the house proceeds as a down payment on a small ranch about an hour outside Denver, where my cousin Jake had been running a successful auto repair business for the past 5 years. He'd been asking me to come out and partner with him for months, and after everything that had happened, a fresh start in a completely different state sounded exactly like what I needed. Colorado was everything Chicago wasn't: wide open spaces, clean air, mountains visible from my front porch, and people who didn't know anything about my failed marriage or the dramatic way it had ended. Jake's business was thriving, specializing in maintenance and repairs for the outdoor enthusiast crowd, hikers and campers and skiers who needed reliable vehicles for mountain adventures. I rented a small apartment in town while I looked for a permanent place to buy. It was strange living alone after 8 years of marriage, but it was also liberating in ways I hadn't expected. I could eat cereal for dinner if I wanted to. I could watch whatever I wanted on TV without negotiating. I could stay late at the shop working on a particularly challenging repair without anyone asking where I'd been. 6 months after moving to Colorado, I ran into an old friend from high school at a hardware store in Denver. Tom Patterson had become a successful small business owner himself, running a landscaping company that served the wealthy suburbs around Boulder. We ended up getting coffee and catching up on the past 20 years. When he asked about Rachel, I gave him the shortened version of what had happened. We'd grown apart, she'd had an affair, we got divorced, I moved to Colorado for a fresh start. I didn't mention the public revelation at my birthday party or the elaborate lies or any of the more dramatic details. "Man, that's rough," Tom said. "But you know what? You look better than you did back in high school. Colorado agrees with you." He was right. I felt healthier, more confident, more like myself than I had in years. The mountain air, the physical work, the sense of starting over in a place where nobody knew my history, it had all combined to give me a kind of peace I hadn't realized I'd been missing. That evening, for the first time since the divorce was finalized, I found myself thinking about Rachel without anger. I wondered if she was happy, if she'd learned anything from what had happened, if she regretted the choices that had led to the end of our marriage. But mostly I felt grateful. Grateful that the truth had come out when it did, rather than years later. Grateful for friends like Mike who had helped me uncover that truth. Grateful for family members who had supported me through the aftermath. And grateful for the opportunity to start over somewhere new, with a clean slate and hard-won wisdom about trust, honesty, and what I actually wanted from a relationship. I never did find out whether Rachel tried to reconnect with Matthew, or if she found someone new, or if she decided to focus on her career and stay single for a while. It didn't matter anymore. Her life was her business just like mine was my business. What I'd learned from the whole experience was that sometimes the most important thing you can do when someone betrays you is simply tell the truth about it. Not for revenge, not to hurt them, but because lies thrive in darkness and truth brings everything into the light where it can be dealt with honestly. 3 years later, I'm still in Colorado. I bought a small house with a view of the Rockies. Jake and I expanded the business to include a second location, and I even started dating again, a veterinarian named Sarah who shares my love of hiking and has never been married before. Sarah knows the basic story about my divorce, but she also knows that I'm not carrying around bitterness or unresolved anger about it. I've moved on completely, which she says is one of the things she finds most attractive about me. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the way I handled the situation with Rachel, whether revealing everything so publicly was too harsh, whether I should have given her a chance to end the affair and try to save our marriage. But I don't have any regrets. Rachel made her choices over the course of 6 months. She chose to lie to me repeatedly, to create elaborate deceptions, to plan a future with someone else while pretending to be committed to our marriage. Those weren't mistakes or momentary lapses in judgment, they were calculated decisions that revealed who she really was when she thought nobody was watching. I chose to reveal the truth publicly because I wanted everyone who cared about both of us to understand why our marriage was ending. I didn't want months of speculation, rumors, or people taking sides based on incomplete information. I wanted the facts to speak for themselves. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. The photos didn't lie, the timeline didn't lie, and the evidence spoke louder than any explanation or apology ever could have. Rachel got her freedom to be with Matthew, and when that didn't work out, she got her freedom to start over completely. I got my freedom to build a new life based on honesty and authenticity rather than secrets and deception. It was a fair trade even if it took us both some time to appreciate it. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.